Here's my prediction right off the jump street. Venezuela has just become the 51st state, at least for a number of years. I don't know if you heard about the news, but the United States just executed an extremely efficient, accurate strike and capture of a foreign leader. And I think it speaks bigger picture than people are talking about surface level. But let's just take some like quick headlines that we heard from the president just this morning. First off, we're going to run the country, is what President Trump said. And he also said that he's not afraid of boots on the ground. And I'm going to just kind of give you like where this gives me, like what it reminds me of in the past. He says that it won't cost us anything to run it. Like these are just, history may sometimes doesn't repeat itself, but it oftentimes rhymes. And it took a little bit over 2 decades, but history may be rhyming similar to a speech given by President Bush in 2002. And this is something that we need to really prepare ourselves for as Americans. And I'm going to tell you like a couple of things. This is going to be a little bit of a longer video. So go ahead and grab yourself a coffee or some thought juice or a cigar or whatever. I'm going to have a milk drink, and I'm also going to have a cigar most likely as well. So here's the thing. We executed this mission a little bit after, or we started the mission a little bit before 02 Eastern Standard Time on Saturday morning, which is today. That's about like almost 0304 in the morning Venezuela time. So if you're a sentry, if you're on duty at any of their Air Force bases, and the beginning of the night starts off quiet, you get a little bit more relaxed. And that's the time, that is the witching hour for military strikes. And so that's one reason we chose that time. We went in reportedly so far, understanding with Delta Force versus going in with SEAL teams. Delta Force is a little bit bigger organizations when it comes to special operators. They can be in more areas. We also went in with law enforcement agent, with FBI agents, because this is partially a law enforcement thing being supported by the Department of War. So it's a really complicated thing. We went with aircrafts, specifically with helos 100 feet above the surface in flight towards the Venezuelan coast. Once we got over near the coastline, we began to hit them with kinetic activity from drones, from Space Command, from Cyber Command, from other aircraft above those helicopters, protecting them from any surface to air strikes, creating a pathway for those helos to go directly towards Maduro's location. For lack of a better term, we overwhelmed them. We created a pathway for those helos. To my understanding so far, one helo took damage, but it was still flyable thereafter. No troops were injured, which is a great thing. And we don't know about any casualties when it comes so far to actual Venezuelans. That's where I want to stop and say that I have a personal dog in this fight. My father-in-law lives in Caracas. This attack was in Caracas. We have an aunt that lives in the outskirts of Caracas. We've heard from her. We have cousins that live in Caracas. We've heard from them. We have not heard from our father-in-law yet, although my aunt said she talked to my father-in-law this morning, but we haven't heard from him. So a personal dog in this fight. More to come on that. But so we have some pretty good looking espresso right there. We're going to make a milk drink today, which I rarely do, but today we'll do a milk drink. So the overall plan, so I want you to just think about this. September 2nd, first boat strike that we conducted to take out what we purported to be drugs coming from Venezuela. Now, one thing I want to talk to you about is that I say purported to be drugs coming from Venezuela because we haven't been necessarily given the evidence to say that all those boats came from Venezuela. Matter of fact, we have evidence that at least one vessel may have came from another country because everybody on the boat was sent back to their countries and none of their countries was Venezuela. So we need more evidence like about that. But I guess at this point, maybe that may not be something we get as Americans until a report is done years from now. Because what was told to Congress is that the drugs that are primarily coming out of that area is cocaine, whereas the administration is alluding to fentanyl without saying fentanyl, because fentanyl is not primarily coming out of Venezuela. But that brings up a big thing when it comes to us going in and doing this type of strike. So give me a second, because steaming milk is extremely loud. So I don't want to hurt you guys' ears. All right, so we got our espresso, we're just gonna do a simple pour. But the thing is that I think that this has a lot of meaning. It's gonna mean a lot for other countries in regards to what this could mean in the entire Western Hemisphere. It was a lot of takeaways to take from what the president said. Colombia is now bracing with alarm after the removal of Maduro in Venezuela by the United States, because there are a lot of countries that we could arguably say the leader of the country is a narco-terrorist. Cuba should be alarmed with some of the rhetoric that came out of the Secretary of State and regarding to calling their government failing, and that the Cubans could be doing better, et cetera, et cetera. This could be 3 more years of just kind of taking out leaders or taking out countries that we don't exactly believe to align with our values, and or making them additional states. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I believe that Venezuela has become the 51st state. I could predictably see blah years from now, we can just fly to that part of South America as US citizens because it's ours. Listen, it's not that simple, it's not that easy. I'm just telling you that this is bigger than a lot of people are letting you know that it is. Maduro joins Saddam Hussein, Panama's Noriega, as the latest leader taken by the United States. Saddam Hussein obviously taken in the early 2000s, Noriega taken in the late 1980s, all for similar or different reasons. But the point being is that we took those leaders out, and this is where I say that what's going on here does rhyme with what happened in the past, and I think it's a big picture that we need to think about. First sip. I really don't normally drink flat whites, but this is really good. It's really good. All right, key takeaways. Number 1, we will run the country. Number 2, we're not afraid of boots on the ground. Number 3, we will be drilling oil and reconstituting some of their oil to pay us back for something. Not really sure yet. Now, side note, decades ago, did we build oil fields for Venezuela? Yeah, we did that in the early 1970s, late 1960s. Is that the repayment? I'm not really sure. Takeaway 4 that I have, we are rebuilding their infrastructure. The president sounded like it was oil infrastructure, but is that also including roadways? How far does that go? Takeaway 5 that I have, a group will be running the country, including the SecDef and the Secretary of State, but we don't know exactly who that group is. My takeaway 6 is that we want good neighbors, which means that this could not be the end. This could be the beginning of a book. And then my last takeaway is that we are possibly going to be in this for the long game. Just listening to the type of language that was coming out today. And that does concern some folks like me who are like a little bit more America first, who are always trying to prep for stuff. Like, what does this like new perceived threat that could be coming out of Venezuela mean for me? Should I start to prep myself differently for people that are not be angry? There are Venezuelans here that could be pissed off, people with cyber capabilities, et cetera, et cetera. Let me tell you why I think that this gives me flashbacks to 2002. So I heard today from the president that it will pay for itself. He also didn't use this language, but I felt it. He kind of alluded to, we will be greeted as liberators by the Venezuelan people. And I'm fearful, I'll let you guys be the judge of this, is that Rumsfeld had a level of hubris that was crazy big in the early 2000s. And now we have like equivalents of that with Secretary Rubio, Secretary Hegseth, the Joint Chief of Staff. I'm nervous about the lack of thought about post-operational security. Maria Machado, who's the operation leader, she's not going to be put into power. The person who was elected in 2024, which is her ally, he's not being put into power. They swore in the vice president recently. I thought the vice president flew to Russia. Maybe she didn't. I'm not really sure. She's already talked to Secretary Rubio and says she will do whatever the F you want. So they are just laying on their sword and just saying, take our booty. We're okay. By booty, I mean the stuff in the ground, not their ass. Okay, but I guess we could take that too. I mean, it seems like we can do whatever we want, which has me a little bit worried. And I'm going to tell you the big reason here in a second. I want to tell you, I'm kind of a neocon on some of the stuff when it comes to bad people. Hugo Chavez before Maduro was a scumbag, bad person. Maduro himself is a scumbag, bad person. And he deserved justice, okay? That doesn't necessarily mean that how everything is unfolding is something that we all can just 100% be on board with until we get more information. The first boat strike was September 2nd. This strike occurred on January 3rd. So on September 2nd, when we first did that boat strike, the president had 2 days or 48 hours to inform Congress that he had conducted a strike. He did that. After that, he had 60 days to kind of come up with a plan and get authorization from the Congress for war. If they were considering this to be a military operation, the administration blew past that 60-day mark. And today they were using a lot of language of this was a law enforcement operation supported by the military. I think that's the stance they're going to go with. And if that's the stance they take up to the Supreme Court, it's probably going to win out. OK. Because who gets to define what is a war act? The president. So if the administration is saying that this was a law enforcement thing, and they took FBI agents with them, and there's an indictment, and they just, we just had the military, they just happen to have like 15,000 people, what I'm talking about, sitting right offshore. They just was helping out the FBI. Who gets to define that? Not, that's something that has to be worked out between the three branches, because Congress may say we define that as war, and the president may say that wasn't war, that was a law enforcement activity, and the Supreme Court has to sort that out. That's the next big fight. In the meantime, Venezuela needs a leader. And I guess for now, I bet within the next 2 weeks or so that it's going to go to President Trump slowly but surely saying that the people of Venezuela can kind of just consider me their president for the meantime. I mean, he already said make Venezuela great again. That language, I don't think is far off coming next. Now, so the biggest picture is that those boat strikes were sown as a necessary thing because those boats were coming in and killing Americans with those drugs, which there hasn't been a consistent argument on this, because in late December, we had 2 boat strikes where both of those boat strikes had survivors, and we did normal operations, which normally the Coast Guard would shoot a boat's engines or use cutters to stop a boat, board the vessel, take everybody to jail, blah, 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 blah. Those 2 boat strikes in late December, when we sunk the boats, there were survivors. We sent the Coast Guard in to pluck them out the water. We didn't kill them. So we're not really having a consistent position. And that's why I told you guys, I really do believe this is Blood for Oil 2.0, and it has really come to fruition today. So now let's think about the big picture. A lot of America First people don't want too much foreign stuff going on, whether that's wars, humanitarian aid. I kind of like humanitarian aid to a certain extent because it's kind of peace, soft power, peace through strength. Peace through strength is one thing like we did in Venezuela. Then there's soft power, which is helping a poor country build roads and keep people from dying from AIDS, and that keeps them from becoming radical, whatever. I like soft power a little bit. But the United States has a lot going on, and some people may consider this to be a distraction. Just in 2025, we struck 15 countries. And that included nations such as Nigeria, Yemen, We conducted strikes all throughout the Middle East, including places like Iran. Along with our allies, we can up that number even higher through strikes with Gaza. Obviously, we didn't do those strikes, but we give Israel like all their freaking weapons. So you can kind of say we were a part of it. We give a lot of foreign aids to tons of countries in the amount of billions of dollars to each country, such as the King of Jordan, and Jordan gets a lot of money. Israel gets the most money. We give money to Nigeria, and we're giving money to places all over Africa. And the economy is kind of rocky right now. A lot of politicians are worried about the Epstein files, which that's something a whole nother beast, where it was law passed, it was supposed to be released at a certain time. And then the Supreme Court recently ruled that the president can only use troops in a limited capacity on streets in Washington, D.C., and that the deployment of those troops in Portland and Chicago seems to be unconstitutional. Now, the final ruling from them won't come until later this year, but they kind of gave a hint that that was going to be what they were going to be doing. So the president preemptively decided to pull everyone out of those streets, saying that all those places are now safe, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that we're starting to lose the forest for the trees. We have so much going on around the world. We have so much going on in our country that we are literally missing what this could mean in not only Venezuela, but the entire world. First off, Venezuela had a pretty healthy army, has a pretty healthy army. Around 300,000 troops. This is not Panama when we took Noriega out. 300,000 troops. Who are they going to be loyal to? Are they going to listen to what we now Americans say? Are they going to just do whatever? Are they going to become like, is it going to become jungle warfare? We have to worry about our troops that are going to be on the ground. Yeah, I do. I am very concerned about troops that are going to be going, protecting oil companies that are about to go down there and start drilling. That's a big thing. But the biggest thing that people are not realizing is that we have a rules-based international order, and it's a collection of laws, treaties, norms, institutions that have all been established post-World War II. Before World War I, if you were a big country and you wanted a little country, you went to the little country, you kicked the door in, you took them, you took their assets, you took the people, you did whatever. And before World War I was even fully put into the grave, World War II kicked off. And we developed this thing called the Allies. And once we won World War II, the Allies, including us, decided that this can't happen again. Because now after World War II, there's these things called nuclear weapons. And so we decided as a coalition of the world that we need a rules-based international order. That we need ways to keep bigger countries from just going into little countries, taking what they want or declaring them a part of their country, especially that nuclear weapons exist, because literally we can just destroy the entire planet. So we came up with these rules. We defined on with shared rules, what every country would do. And there are three main pillars of the rules-based international order that we need to think about. There's security, which has to do with the UN. There's economical, and then there's values. And so there's things that you keep hearing thrown around a lot called international law and rules-based order. So it's argued to say the United States is arguing that we're not breaking international law by the things that we're doing. International law might be like if you're breaking a formal treaty, or if it's something that's legally binding. Those are like international law. But rules-based order are these rules that we put in place, which include laws that we all just follow to keep order going on around the entire world. This is like a behavioral code for states. If you follow this code, in essence, other countries will follow this code. So an example of country that hate the rules-based international order is Russia. And them going into, countries that follow that order is a country like Ukraine, which is they agreed to give up their nuclear weapons for as concessions that we would give them protections, et cetera, et cetera. They're a part of that order. And then in 2014, Russia went in and that was kind of how that goes. And we really haven't been supporting that like we agreed 2 years ago. But these rules-based orders is what has kept the world from doing something similar to World War II. And what this may mean, the United States going into Venezuela, this could mean that the West is no longer concerned about the rule-based order that we've come to know. That other countries may decide that it behooves them to call a leader of a country this or that, a narco-terrorist or a sex trafficker terrorist or whatever, and go into that country and do as they see fit. China and Taiwan is the first thing that I think about. We in America have called Maduro a narco-terrorist, started bombing the ships, the boats that left the country, that, or at least we were told, allegedly left the country. And eventually it led to a head to where we are flying in with helos and, in theory, taking their oil. What's the difference from China declaring the Taiwanese leader whatever the hell they want, flying in with helos in the dead of night, taking out the Taiwanese president or leader, whatever they call them, and running the country until they find someone that they have better neighbors? This rule-based order is a bigger picture than people are realizing, and it invites international gridlock, international conflict, to where security falls, then economies of different countries are put at jeopardy and at risk, and then like the whole system can come down and collapse. So it is, what the rules-based order really did is that might does not make it right. So you having more might than a country, you being bigger, you having more control, you having like a bigger footprint doesn't make it right that you can go in that country and have your way with them. Because we can make that same argument with other countries in the Western Hemisphere, whether it's Canada. The president was using very language that the Mexico leader may want to concern herself with, the Colombian leader may want to concern himself with, Cuba and Greenland. That if we see your country is not conforming in a way that makes you a good neighbor, that could be an issue for your country. Hey, Google, turn on the exhaust fan. So I think that as we move closer to the Monroe Doctrine, we move further away from what Dwight Eisenhower saw happening that we were trying to prevent from happening, which is he was on board with the rules-based international order. He saw what it could mean for so many countries to have nuclear power, to not follow a set of rules and establish laws that would keep the world from destroying itself. So that is a big thing that I think people are missing. Yes, it is important to know that the immediate things that just happened, which is we're saying that we're running the country. For how long we're going to be running the country, I don't know. We're saying that that we have Maduro on the Iwo Jima, which I was on the Iwo Jima for a number of months. Very capable vessel, smaller than the Gerald R. Ford, but that vessel is designed to carry Marines. So they have a lot of Harrier jets, which take off and land differently than like F-35s. That's why they can be on an LHD or a helicopter carrier such as the Iwo Jima. There's a bunch of helos on that ship. There's a landing deck in the back of that vessel. They have the ability to send different boats and vessels out of the back of the ship that Marines ride on, whether they're hovercrafts or whatever. Like, that ship is crazy capable. You don't want to mess with that ship. That is the ship that Maduro's on, and they have him blindfolded, earmuffed, and holding a bottle of water. What they're doing with that is they don't want him to know where he is or where he's going. Of course, he knows he's on a ship. You can feel you're on a ship when you're on the Iwo Jima, but you don't know where he is. His wife is somewhere else on the ship. It's a wrap for them, okay? But as you sit and you listen to these different stories, different things that people are going to be talking about today, I want you to remember that, at least for me, the establishment of the rules-based international order is crazy important. And I just hope that as we continue to assess our neighbors in the Western Hemisphere, that we don't continue to just call this or that, this type of terrorist, this type of feckless leader, this type of ineffective leader, and just start taking over governments. Now, I'm gonna just tell you some things I kind of like about what's going on, because I am a person and I still have feelings. I wanna see my father-in-law. I wanna see my cousins and aunt that lives in the country. And, you know, I have a small empathy gap when it comes to certain feelings when it comes to Venezuela. Because I would love to be able to just get on a plane, fly there with no visa, visit my people, get on a plane, and come back to the United States. This is like step one for that, but that doesn't make it completely the way it should be done. But could it come to that point? Yeah, it could. It could become to the point where Americans can go to Venezuela as we see fit, but Venezuelans can't come to America as they see fit. I'm just saying that could be a thing. Now, we own a lot of stuff around the world. Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands, America Samoa, the U.S. Virgin Islands, all sorts of small islands off the coast of New York. We have places all over the world that belong to us, whether they directly under our governmental rule or we let them run themselves, but they still are able to come and go as they see fit, like America Samoa, Puerto Rico, etc. I think that this could be similar to the emancipation of Puerto Rico. So during the early 1900s, as we were getting into it with Cuba, we emancipated Puerto Rico from the Cubans. It was like one of the concessions they had to give for us to end that conflict we were having from them. Puerto Rico has belonged to us ever since. Now, we've never declared it a state, but it's been ours. This could be the same thing. So this gives me the same type of feelings of the emancipation of Puerto Rico, of 2002, when we were saying that it's not going to cost us anything and we're going to be seen as liberators, all of that type of stuff. And I really wanted to wait to do a video until I heard the president speak, the SecDef speak, the Secretary of War speak, and the Secretary of State. And I didn't even know the Joint Chief of Staff was going to speak, and he gave us the TikTok on how the operations went. So glad no troops were hurt. Sucks that one of our aircrafts got damaged. I'm glad it was still flyable. But there was nothing that the Venezuelans was going to do in a tremendous way, because before that mission starts, we have jamming capabilities to where the country can no longer talk to itself. This includes citizen cell phones getting jammed, military assets being jammed. Then we're coming in and we're attacking the Air Force bases so that they can surface. The air missiles are degraded. Whether the 50s are degraded, anything that can take out a low-flying aircraft like a helicopter can be taken out by drones. We had so many just unmanned, remotely operated drones in the area. We had an AC-130, which is similar to a C-130, but the difference is out of their doors, they have these large guns and they're crazy accurate, much more accurate than a drone, which we can fire on different targets. We were effectuating action throughout the country. It was war porn, as we would say in the military. And that's the part I'm not the biggest fan of. It's like gloating over the war porn aspect, but it is what it is. Comment down below. What do you think this means? Do you think that this brings another layer of resentment from the Venezuelan people? Do you need to adjust the way you look at the world order? Do you think that the rules-based and international order is going to be jeopardized? I think that this is a major chip in that order. And other countries are going to possibly see this example and decide that they can do the same thing. First time stopping by, hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you a part of the battalion. If this is not your first time stopping by, well, thank you once again for watching me run my grape. For everyone else, we'll speak soon.